We've been spending this month learning how to love ourselves. And even though we understand it on the surface, how do we put it into practice? So in this video, I'm going to share with you guys the 3 best ways that I've learned how to practice self-love. Hey sunflowers, welcome to BPDsquared, the channel where we discuss mental health, personal growth, and how to become our best selves. My name is Brenda, and I am so glad you're here. Self-Love February is all about learning what self-love is and how we can implement it more into our lives. So far, I've shared with you guys the steps that I took to start learning how to love myself, which also included me putting out into the universe that I was seeking a change. And last week, I shared with you guys what I felt led me to needing to seek a change in the first place. So for this week, we're taking those changes and we're putting them into action. How many times have we let something slide that somebody said or did to us? How many times have we allowed somebody to disrespect us or insult us and we just excused it away? It may sound something like, but they didn't really mean it that way. It's okay. They were probably just having a bad day. Or my former go-to. That's just the way that they are. It wasn't too long ago that I had a situation come up like that, and I started to develop those same excuses for said person, but I had to stop myself because I was like, they're doing something that I don't agree with. They're doing something that is not respectful to me. So I had to ask myself, why is it okay for them to disrespect me? Now, I know we're all well acquainted by now with what boundaries are and even what they look like, but there are still some times where I'm not even sure the right time to implement a boundary. So a trick I like to use for myself, whenever I'm in a situation where I may feel uncomfortable, I may feel disrespected, I just stop and ask myself, do I want this to happen again? Setting a boundary doesn't always mean that you're automatically being disrespected, and it doesn't even have to always cross into a territory of disrespect. It's just something that possibly, like I said earlier, made you uncomfortable or made you feel uneasy. I had a family member who would use a certain word to describe people within the LGBT community. And at the time, I was like, I'm not comfortable with you saying that around me. So I can't speak for whether or not this person still uses this type of language, but I can say that ever since I implemented that boundary, they don't say it around me. If someone is doing something around you that makes you uncomfortable, uneasy, or makes you feel disrespected, I encourage that you stop the behavior as soon as you possibly can. I'm very much aware, however, that it may be a little more difficult, especially with people who you are close to, like friends and family, especially if they're already used to doing it around you. But I still say, talk to the person in private and let them know, this is how I feel. This is what you're doing, and this is what it makes me feel like when you do it. Be very direct and be firm. Do not accept someone trying to rationalize their bad behavior or trying to make you feel as if you're being too sensitive. If you have expressed how you feel about the situation and they are still continuing the behavior, you can let them know. This is a request out of respect for our relationship. If you cannot respect me, then we cannot have a relationship. So sunflowers, if there's ever a concern on whether or not a boundary needs to be set, just ask yourself, is this something I want to happen again? Everything works on an input and output system. In order to get what you really want out of life, you have to be willing to put the same amount of energy out. So, how good are you at forgiving others? More importantly, how good are you at forgiving yourself? I'm still reading the book, The 4 Agreements, and I'm on the chapter right now titled, Don't Take Anything Personally. In this chapter, they describe that no matter what is said or done to you, it is less about the person and what they said and did, and more about how you internalize what was said and done. If you are holding a grudge or you're holding resentment, it is less about what that person says or feels about you and more about what you feel about yourself. Say you're scrolling along social media and you come across a post that says, girls that wear bonnets are dumb. Now you're sitting in bed wearing a bonnet, so you take offense to this. So you jump into the comments, you let this person know it is not nice to call someone dumb. And then you go into the history of why bonnets are needed and the reason why they wear them and X, Y, and Z, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. And let's just say that the person responds with, that's just my opinion. But you still feel attacked. Do you feel attacked or do you feel offended because the person is saying something that you may actually agree with? Do you actually think you look dumb wearing a bonnet? How this ties into self-love is recognizing the things within yourself that trigger you. My husband and I dealt with a very triggering situation recently. And even though, yes, he has a part in it, the truth is I had no idea what to do in that situation. And at that time, I had no idea what I would do in a real financial crisis. So I ended up making my ignorance his responsibility. So I realized I'm gonna have to go about this differently. I don't want to have the same reaction every time something like this may happen. If I want a better relationship with money, I have to put respect on how I spend my money. I have to put respect into where my money is going. The same thing for my personal relationship. So like with my husband, if I want my husband to be more open and vulnerable with me, then I have to allow the same courtesy on the opposite end. I have to be that way with him. I have to be just as open and just as willing to hear his concerns and his complaint. Again, you only get back what you are willing to give. If you are not willing to be honest with yourself, you have no chance of other people wanting to be honest with you either. If you want an equal return on your input, start paying attention to what your complaints are. A complaint is defined as an expression of discontent, regret, pain, censure, resentment, or grief. A complaint on its own is good for expressing and addressing the things that you are not content with. But letting a complaint just exist for the sake of existing and just letting it be does nothing for your betterment. I had to learn how to transition my mind from embracing a complaint to embracing a concern. A concern is defined as a matter that engages a person's attention, interest, or care, or that affects a person's welfare or happiness. This is similar to a complaint in that your discontent is being addressed, but there's also a call for a solution. I started to see things play out so differently in my life when I turned my complaints into concerns. Now look, I'm not saying that I don't still get upset or angry or annoyed, because I 100% most definitely do. But I don't allow myself to stay in that emotion without also seeking the solution. No matter what the complaint may be, the solution is on you. If you voice that you have a problem with something or someone, you have to be prepared to give them the solution. You have to be prepared to instruct them on how to fix it. If they have a suggestion on how to solve the problem, of course, hear them out. Allow them the space to offer a solution, even though you may already have one in place. But the point of the matter is, at the end of it all, you are still the one responsible on how to fix the problem. You are responsible for finding your comfort in an uncomfortable situation. Be willing to open yourself to the energy that you wish to receive. This is the only way that you can find true balance within yourself. I mean, it's working for me so far. My greatest lessons came from the times that I spent alone. I feel I gained the most personal growth in those moments that I was at my absolute lowest. The times where I was harming myself and severely depressed and just not understanding what it was that I needed in that time, but also holding resentment against others because I didn't know how to express what I needed at the time, and they weren't offering it to me either. I kind of got into this mindset of feeling as if I'm the only one who can save myself from this situation, but I had no idea how to do that. And going back to what I was talking about earlier, holding those grudges and holding resentment. For years, I held on to resentment against my church, my old church congregation, because I felt that I was abandoned in that time. I felt that nobody cared. Basically, I felt like nobody cared about me in that moment. In that moment, I desperately wanted somebody to just reach out their hand and just look me in the eye and just say, "Are you okay?" Looking back on that situation, like I mentioned earlier, I didn't know what I needed in that moment. So it's, interesting that I could hold that against them when they probably didn't even know what I would need in that moment. They probably never experienced something like that before. And so in giving myself compassion in that moment, I was able to say, I don't know what I want. How can they know what I want? All I know at the time is that I just was overwhelmed with so much negativity and so many negative emotions. Being alone is not the same as being lonely. Being alone is allowing yourself space to exist outside of everyone else. I used to spend my time alone. I would close myself up in my closet and I would turn on Creed's Don't Stop Dancing. Honestly, y'all, if it wasn't for that song, I don't know where I would be right now. Find a space where you can be vulnerable. Find a space where you can laugh loud and cry hard. This doesn't matter if it's your car, your bathroom, like for me, my closet, the dressing room at the back of a JCPenney, wherever you find that solace and that peace, that's where you go to get it. Although I would be very interested to see how you make that work in the JCPenney, but anyway. And I hear you thinking, but Brian, I have a family. Brian, I got work. Brian, I got school. Brian, I got stuff to do. I got, things to take care of. I have X, Y, and Z. Trust me, I hear you. But you can give yourself 10 minutes. All you need is 10 minutes. Give yourself 10 minutes to feel all those emotions that you've buried away. Give yourself 10 minutes to really go through it. Ask yourself the hurtful questions, the questions that you're afraid of the answer to, and listen. Really listen. Whatever voice you're hearing, God, the universe, spirit, your higher self, the dust mite in the corner, really listen to what they're saying. And do yourself one better. Write it down. Do your best not to alter what you're hearing when you write it down. Just write it down. I personally get my best alone time results when I am in the shower. This is the time that I allow all those thoughts to kind of gather and just exist and just be. And I take this time to either yell or scream or cry or sing obnoxiously loud. But this is the moment that I guess you could say I kind of ritualistically or symbolically allow the emotions to process through. What I like to do is imagine that as I'm putting soap on my body, that the suds and the lather are all the problems, all the issues, all the complaints, all the concerns, all of the negativity, all the outside emotions, everything that has been going on in me and around me. I pretend that that's all of that is all of those things bubbling up onto my body. And I speak to that and I let that exist in that way. Once I finish soaping up and I let all the water run off of my body, I just imagine that all of those negative thoughts, all of those complaints, concerns, issues, problems, fears, doubts, guilts, all of those things are just running down my body and going down the drain away from me. And honestly, I can truthfully tell you, every time I do this, I feel so much better. It feels as if a layer has been literally taken away from me. I feel like I'm lighter because I feel like I'm not carrying as much heaviness on me anymore because I've allowed it to literally rinse off of me and go down the drain, down into another place that is not on me. So if you have ever felt overwhelmed by emotions and aren't really sure how to release those emotions in a healthy way, you can try this shower method. Another thing you can try when you're trying to get rid of those negative emotions and if you have transportation like a car or you can walk somewhere safely, is a method I like to call the drop-off method. The drop-off method is when you physically leave the space that is causing you distress or discomfort, and you take that distress and discomfort and you leave it somewhere else. There was one night I was so jumbled up in my own emotions, and I just wasn't sure how to process myself out of what I was feeling. So I got in the car and I drove to Walmart. Now this was like after 11 o'clock at night, and this was like early COVID stages. So they were just starting to implement the close at midnight time frame for Walmart. Crazy, I know. But in that time, I just left the house. I went to the store and I walked around for a little bit just to kind of, clear my mind and distract myself. And, once they announced that the store was closing, I was like, okay, got to get back in the car, got to get back home. But I sat in the car in the parking lot for a little bit, and I really just let myself be in those emotions. At the end of it all, when I drove away, whatever I was feeling, I left it right there in that parking lot. Whatever that energy was, I did not bring it back home with me. So if you do have the means to be able to get up and go somewhere else, even if it's just to walk outside and around the corner, around the block or whatever, find a place where you can say, I don't want to bring this back home with me, and you energetically leave it there. Learn to listen to yourself by spending time alone. Contrary to popular belief, we are more equipped to help ourselves than we actually give ourselves credit for. So which of these 3 methods are you going to put into practice this week? Let me know in the comments down below. For your journals this week, take 10 minutes of alone time. Give yourself time to sit with yourself, sit with your emotions, and really listen to what it is you have to tell yourself. And of course, make sure you write it down in your journal. Thanks so much for joining me in this week's video, Sunflowers. Thank you so much for all your love and support. Make sure you follow me on my socials. And if you haven't yet, make sure you click that subscribe button so that you can become a sunflower and help us to continue to grow this community. As you can see, it's much closer to reaching that 1,000 subscriber mark. And I would love to be able to share my gratitude with you guys once we cross that threshold. So stay tuned. There's a little surprise coming with that. But yeah, all that said and done, love yourself because I love you. And stay square, and I'll see you in the next video. Love you. Bye.